Kent, you were president during what can truly be called the most amazing week in B'nai B'rith history. Celebration of our 150th anniversary lasted a full 8 days and covered the mid-Atlantic seaboard from New York to Philadelphia to Baltimore and culminating in Washington. Speakers included the Israeli ambassador to the UN, 2 cabinet members, 2 senators, noted novelists, media personalities, the former foreign minister of Israel, Abba Eban, ambassadors to the United States from several countries. But I think the highlight had to have been the Havdalah service at the Jefferson Memorial. There, President Clinton and the novelist Leon Uris, author of Exodus, spoke to an overflow crowd and participated in the Havdalah ceremony. To help us understand how much of this week of programs spoke to the role that B'nai B'rith played in the nation and the world.
Well, Dan, as you outlined, it was a fascinating and fantastic week. We spent a lot of time doing planning, and we started in New York. We went down to where Scheiner's calf was supposed to be. I don't remember what's there now. But we had events in New York. We went to Philadelphia. What is that statue that B'nai B'rith gave?
Yes, on the 100th anniversary of the United States, B'nai B'rith gave a statue, beautiful, monument, religious freedom monument.
Religious freedom, and
City of Philadelphia.
We gathered around there, and then we continued to Baltimore. We had functions there and came to Washington. We had, it's almost indescribable, the events that we had. We had a dinner, and Secretary of Labor Rights spoke there. But the big moment was a Havdalah service at the Jefferson Memorial. B'nai B'rith was there. They had chairs. We had a really large contingent. And Leon Uris, the author of Exodus, spoke, and I was asked to greet the president, and I went around the memorial, and the cars, the president's protection came first, then the limousine carrying the president, and Hillary Clinton, First Lady. The First Lady got out, and we chatted, but the president sat in the car. And I gazed over there, and I could see what he was doing. He had 3x5 cards, or whatever this is, and he was going through his notes so that he would be prepared when he addressed the B'nai B'rith. Anyway, he finally came out, and we walked up on the stage, and he made his remarks, and it was just an outstanding event celebrating the 150th anniversary of all the work that B'nai B'rith has done in humanitarian sections and for Jewish interests. But we were well publicized and recognized, and it was just an inspiring week.
Well, that photo too from Havdalah, which had to have been, to this day, the only Havdalah service at the Jefferson Memorial. I can't...
With his yarmulke on.
Exactly. You can see that photo also in the president's office.
Right.
Early 1990s, 2 bombings in Argentina, 2 bombings in Buenos Aires, the bombing of the Israeli embassy, and then a year later, the bombing of the AMIA Social Service building in Buenos Aires. Those bombings, to this day, the perpetrators have not been brought to justice. But because of our very strong presence in Buenos Aires, largest Jewish community in Latin America, in Argentina, B'nai B'rith was deeply involved in the aftermath of those bombings. So pick it up from there.
Well, I had been to Argentina, and I met with President Menem on 1 or 2 occasions. And I happened to be in Washington at the time that the building, the Amar building, was it was like a Jewish center where you had vocational guidance, you had all different departments in this one particular building that was blown up. And when I got there, I was met and taken to the foreign minister, who started apologizing, and then from there we went to President Menem's office. He must have had his whole cabinet there, apologizing, as falsely as it may have been, but he was apologizing in his cabinet of what took place. But what was very, very sad, made an impression that I've never forgotten. I went to the building that was blown up, and there you had people with pails that were getting the dirt, whatever they can, and using just pails, because if there were any body parts, they wanted to preserve them. And there was a building nearby, and in that building, a lot of people assembled who knew people or had relatives or spouses that were in the building when it was blown up, and they had the names, and every once in a while you would hear an outcry of people screaming, because it meant that someone found their relative or whatever who was blown up. But the saddest thing was there was a young rabbi, maybe early 40s, that had two little girls. About 15 minutes before the building blew, he spoke to his wife, who was head of this vocational department. And he must have known inwardly that she was not alive. But there he was, giving comfort to everyone that he could, and comforting his little girls. And that night, they had a service at the synagogue, and you couldn't get a seat. It was standing room only. Ambassadors were there, everyone was there, talking about the tragic event that happened. And as we know today, that problem has not been solved, and Tommy will speak more about it. But that was one of these incidents that was just a real sad thing to have to see.
I'm going to reference one more thing, but it's got to be very brief. It's quite a story because I was present. January 1991, the last week of January. This was the first Gulf War. Scuds were being fired at Israel from Iraq. Again, B'nai B'rith immediately responded to the need to show solidarity. So you went to Israel.
I did. On the way, we stopped in Czechoslovakia and saw President Havel. We went to Germany and saw Chancellor Kohl. We went to Warsaw and saw Valenza, all on behalf of Israel. Then when we were in Warsaw, about 3 o'clock in the morning, we were taken to an old military airport that was very dingy. But anyway, we got on we waited for a plane to land. We got on the plane. The plane was coming from Russia. There were people who were making aliyah, and they must have taken every bit of clothing they had and put it on them, because the odor was quite pronounced. But nevertheless, we flew to Israel, landed at Ben Gurion, and as we landed, there was another plane that flew in, and Ethiopians in their white robes and sandals were coming off the plane. Both of us, those on the plane I was on, plus the Ethiopians, were taken to like a big hangar type room, and we were instructed how to use a gas mask. And for the length of time that I was there, I had a strap with a box with a gas mask that all of us carried, with needles that if there were a chemical attack, that you could give yourself a shot. Very quickly, I was there for 3 Scud missile attacks. 2 of them were in Tel Aviv during the day. All of them basically were in Tel Aviv. But the third one came at night around 2 a.m. and the sirens and everything goes off. I was in Jerusalem, and all of us were assigned a safe room. You went to that room when you heard the sirens. You put towels down at the door so that nothing could seep through. You had a radio, you had water, and they had almost like, I guess you would call it oxygen apparatus, where the young women put their baby, and they had plastic sleeves, so if they had to change them or feed them or do anything, they can do it, but that was what was going to protect the baby. But there it was, 2 in the morning, and people in their bedclothes, all rushing to get to the safe room. Those are the things that we experienced as we served that term of office and was there to see firsthand. One other little interesting thing, I was having dinner in the hotel's restaurant, and the guy at the desk comes over to me. He says, there's a lady that would like to talk to you when you finish dinner. Well, I said, I'll be about 15, 20 minutes. After that time, I went out to the lobby. Here's this little lady, and she introduced herself. For those in the United States might recognize the name, Dr. Ruth Westheimer. She was there to write a book. I had a suite. I took her up to the suite. We called people in the United States, but she had served in the Haganah, and she was quite a lady.
Actually, when we honored her a couple of weeks ago, she recalled exactly that meeting that we had. Thank you.
And you know, Ken mentioned a plane from Ethiopia with Ethiopian Jews. I'd be remiss if I didn't recount to the group that Jerry Kraft, who preceded me as president, who's not here, was a pioneer in Ethiopian Jewry and was a highlight of the plight of Ethiopian Jews and instrumental in opening the doors to permit them to go to Israel.
Thank you.